My mother-in-law wore a white dress to our wedding and embarrassed herself. I am completely confused. Help! I'm getting married soon. We're having a traditional wedding. I am Indian and my fiancé is not, but he was fine with an Indian wedding. My future mother-in-law asked if she could wear white to our wedding. I said yes, and now my fiancé is very angry with me. He says she will try to steal the spotlight and that she will definitely come in a long white dress and that it was very irresponsible of me to agree so easily. The thing is, first, I am not wearing a white wedding dress. I will be in a traditional red outfit, which, due to the silk-like fabric and embroidery style, is very different from other guests' attire. So even if the mother-in-law comes in a white wedding dress, it's not the same thing, right? And yes, maybe I'm being dense, but I honestly don't understand why it matters if the mother-in-law wears white, even if I were also in white. As long as the groom doesn't confuse the bride and marry the wrong one, what's the difference? I apologize if this is a stupid question, but my fiancé is truly upset that I didn't stop my mother-in-law, and I need help understanding the situation. I don't want to upset him.
My fiancé knows what my wedding dress looks like. He has seen it. For those asking if the mother-in-law knows what my wedding dress looks like, I am not sure. We discussed what the wedding would be like. She has never been to an Indian wedding before, but we definitely didn't discuss what exactly I would wear. I think she was a little confused when I said she could wear white, but maybe I'm just projecting because the whole conversation was a bit confusing.
Comment 1. Judging by the fiancé's reaction, the author's mother-in-law likely has a history of inappropriate and/or attention-seeking behavior, and he is trying to break that cycle. The author should talk to the fiancé to develop a united front, and perhaps in the future tell the mother-in-law that everything must be cleared with him. However, I think the way she would imagine outsmarting everyone, only to see the bride in red, would have been a magnificent spectacle. I think the author's fiancé should fully play into this, pretend everything is normal, and they'll be impressed, and so on. Comment 2. Yes, judging by this post, the mother-in-law has never been to an Indian wedding and has no idea what awaits her. One has to wake up very early to outshine the Indian wedding procession. I was at an Indian wedding many years ago. Good heavens, the fabrics, the jewelry, the gold, everything was very luxurious. White simply won't stand out the way she thinks it will. I don't understand what future mothers-in-law or other guests are trying to achieve by wearing white to a wedding, stealing attention from the bride so people approach them and ask if they are the bride, and they reply coyly, no, blushing and giggling. In my opinion, all a guest wearing white at a wedding will get is ridicule or perhaps concern for their mental health. Update. As you advised, I talked to my fiancé about why he was so upset. He explained that his mother used to joke that she would wear white, and he directly told her that she couldn't do that. He didn't tell me about it because he didn't want to worry me. According to him, she has had a habit of stealing the spotlight his entire life, which left him traumatized. That is, when I gave his mother permission to wear white, he was very upset that I gave permission, even though he had strictly forbidden it. He admitted that it was wrong of him to get so angry, since he himself hadn't shared the context with me. We agreed to communicate better going forward and reconciled. Then he wanted me to call his mother and tell her she couldn't wear white, or she wouldn't be let into the wedding. I didn't want to do that because it seemed like a 100% way to start an open feud, and as I already mentioned, I personally have no problem with the mother-in-law wearing white. I told him that he could tell her himself if he wanted to, but he insisted that I had to be the one to say it because I gave the permission. A dispute was already starting, so I showed him this post and all your advice. This helped him understand that even if the mother-in-law wears white, she still won't stand out, at least not in a good way. And he really liked the idea of just not telling his mother that I wouldn't be wearing white. So we will most likely suggest buying her a sari, but if she wants to come in white, we won't stop her. Thank you to everyone who gave advice, and I'll try to update after the wedding. Groom's update. Given how things turned out, I felt it was right to write an update myself. I am the author's ex-fiancé. After Pia, not her real name, posted this, many commenters said I was wrong for not handling my mother myself, and especially wrong for getting angry at Pia without explaining anything to her. I didn't want to admit it, but the more comments I read, the harder it was to ignore. I don't have a good relationship with my mother. She demanded gifts for my birthday because without her, I wouldn't exist. In 18 years, I never opened a single gift myself. Looking back, I realized that every event, from sports games to graduation, was always about her. I always felt that my life and my achievements were just an extension of her own. I think I suppressed my frustration because everyone around me acted like it was normal. I didn't know how to deal with it, so I just tried to get as far away from her as possible. I got into the farthest university I realistically could and kept my distance because every time I had to go home, it all started over. In university, I was lucky to meet Pia, and for the first time, I started to like myself. I didn't have to hide or downplay my successes or even my failures. And her family was so warm and accepting that my childhood felt like just a nightmare from the past. I thought that now that I'm an adult and independent, I could handle it. Everyone says you shouldn't poke a sleeping dog. And in the most difficult moments, I was jealous of my wonderful fiancé because she had such a loving family, even though they treated me like their own. I was ashamed of my mother's behavior and of my resentment, so I pretended everything was fine. Until I read this post and all your comments, I don't think I understood how important my wedding was to me. I mean, it's clear that marrying the girl of your dreams is significant in itself, but I mean the details of the ceremony. I had a very clear image in my head of how I wanted to see my wedding, but a mix of childhood trauma and the idea that the wedding is the bride's day and men aren't supposed to care about that prevented me from expressing it. I also didn't understand how much I wanted this event to be about me and not about my mother. This hellish cocktail of repressed and suppressed feelings led to me unfairly snapping at Pia when my mother tried to pull her old trick. At that moment, I completely forgot that white is not a wedding color in Indian weddings. I just felt a cold sweat from the thought that another important moment could be stolen by my mother. I think Pia was shocked by my outburst because she had never seen me like that, and she wrote that post to get an outside perspective. Neither of us imagined what the consequences would be. I read every comment at least 10 times. I couldn't stop thinking about it. Unwanted memories kept creeping into my head, no matter how hard I tried to bury myself in work or exhaust myself with training. That night, I had a real breakdown.
I sobbed and cried, and that was probably my worst moment. The next morning, I expected to wake up alone and get a message that the wedding was canceled, but Pia stayed with me. She convinced me to go to therapy, supported me during the first hellish sessions, and gave me space when I needed it. Therapy really helped. I was able to understand why I felt anger and resentment and how to deal with it differently instead of just trying to ignore it. I apologized to Pia even earlier, but therapy allowed me to be truly honest with her about my family. This seriously transformed our relationship. And I took charge of the wedding planning with the help of my in-laws, and that turned out to be wonderful. I was able to truly design the wedding of my dreams. My mother-in-law later said she felt immense relief when we switched roles because my wonderful Pia wasn't worried about colors or decor at all and barely got involved in anything as long as we got married. You probably already understood from her post that she is quite a calm and low-maintenance person. She joked that it was enough for her just to exchange garlands and be done with it. My mother-in-law was also very supportive and patient, letting me express my ideas and even suggesting ideas I hadn't thought of but really liked, like me arriving at the ceremony on horseback. We now have an inside joke that I'm more like her child than Pia is because our tastes match so well. And the wedding itself was incredibly beautiful. Pia was ready to completely revoke the invitation to my parents after everything that happened, but her intimidating younger sister suggested we still invite them for the third day of the ceremony to show that I was no longer alone, and whatever they tried to do, this time it would be my way. I have to admit those words stuck with me, so we decided to invite them on the third day of the ceremony, and it worked out even better than I could have imagined. First, the fact that my mother had no idea what an Indian wedding was helped, so when she showed up in a long white tulle ball gown, security decided she had the wrong address and didn't let her in. I didn't plan that at all, but seeing her fume at the gates while the other guests walked past was delightful. Second, against the background of embroidered Indian silks and smooth satins, her dress looked frankly shabby. Instead of overshadowing everyone, she just looked out of place. This emphasized the splendor of the other guests compared to her much more modest appearance. Pia looked especially beautiful in the red Lehenga choli with intricate henna on her hands and feet. Maybe I'm biased because she's my wife, but she has the most beautiful black hair. Indian brides also wear an accessory called a mathapati. It looks like a crown, and it definitely made her look like a princess. At that moment, I forgot about my parents, about my worries, and about the rest of the world because I couldn't take my eyes off her. Then my mother started trying with all her might to interrupt the ceremony. First, she started coughing demonstratively, but luckily Pia's aunt sitting nearby gave her a cough drop. Then she tried to start a conversation, but Pia's 5-year-old niece loudly said in her squeaky child's voice that was perfectly audible, "Don't you know it's rude to talk at a wedding? I'm 5, and even I know that." Later, I learned that my wonderful sister-in-law specially taught her this. The third time my mother tried to interfere, Pia's cousin, whom the sister-in-law had also prepared, jumped up and loudly whispered that the food didn't seem to agree with my mother and she urgently needed the restroom. I think you get the hint. And she practically pushed her out. After that, my mother sat quietly until the end of the ceremony, and everyone else acted as if she didn't exist. At the reception after the ceremony, the contrast between my mother and the others became even more obvious due to her unfamiliarity with Bollywood and Tollywood dances. So she decided to draw attention back by talking. She turned to my mother-in-law and started complaining about how hard it was to raise me. The mother-in-law replied, "No matter how difficult children are, they bring 10 times more joy just by growing up. Your son is such a wonderful young man. You must be so proud of him." My mother didn't like the direction of the conversation, so she turned to Pia and asked if she was sure she wanted to marry me. And this was after we were married. I looked at her as if she were stupid and said, "Why would I marry him if I wasn't sure?" My mother then asked again, loudly, if she was sure, since I used to wet the bed. I hadn't done that since I was 8, but here she was, loudly announcing it to the whole room. At that moment, I truly hated her. It felt like a lump was stuck in my throat and I couldn't say anything. Pia had no problem with this. "You must be mistaken," she said, in such a confident tone with a slight note of concern that my mother for a second truly looked upset. Then Pia raised her voice to be heard over the music. "Dear mother-in-law, I know we are family now, but now, or ever really, is not the time to discuss your bedroom problems." Then she dragged me to the dance floor while people stared at my mother. And like an idiot, the first thing I said during our first dance as husband and wife was, "My mother was telling the truth." Well, because I am the luckiest man on earth, Pia just squeezed my hand and said that this happens when children go through stress, and that it wasn't my fault. The problem basically ended there, and I enjoyed the wedding, the dancing, the food, and the conversations with Pia and her, and now my wonderful family. I saw Pia and my sister-in-law talk to my mother again later, but I was too far away to hear. Apparently nothing terrible happened because the sister-in-law was smiling a lot, and my mother didn't try to pull anything else. By the end of the day, my mother looked like she was suffering from severe constipation, but she never managed to spoil anything. When I said goodbye to her, I felt immense relief, as if a weight had lifted from my legs and my knees could finally bend. It was the first time in my life that she couldn't ruin an important day for me. After the wedding, I no longer had any sudden intrusive memories from the past. I felt incredibly happy to have married this girl, and I think I might have done something very foolish after that argument if I hadn't seen so many comments from strangers telling me the same thing. So I couldn't ignore it anymore. If anyone is still following our story, I want to say a huge thank you to everyone.